likely to scale globally?
Good afternoon. I think some of you will be here to watch someone talking about Acropora from Indonesia. I won't do that. I'm a fill-in, so apologies for that. But I'd like to start first by acknowledging the diverse Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander groups that span the length of the Great Barrier Reef, and pay my respects to elders past and present and emerging for their continued efforts to look after this extraordinary but challenged place. I thought, as I said, it was a bit of a late arrival for this, but I thought I'd try and give you a bit of a sense of what we were trying to do with the Citizens Project, and particularly with two. One is Great Reef Census, which you might have heard a bit about in the last few days, but also the Reef Cooperative, which Tarquin Singleton talked very eloquently about yesterday, and Eric touched on this morning as well. My background is one of sort of much more sort of global movement building, and I helped start the Earth Out project, which is the lights out in cities around the world, back in Sydney in 2007. And one of the things that sort of came off the back of that was there's this incredible world of assets out there, whether it's people, whether it's organizations, whether in the case of the Great Barrier Reef, it's boats and skippers and divers. If you're thinking about the current need to massively not just reduce emissions, but also because we've left everything so late, to scale up our conservation efforts, those assets become more and more important in our view in the coming years. And Citizens has really started to try and work out how you might do that. It was one of the hardest jobs I've ever had to start this organisation up. We got a lot of things wrong in the first couple of years. But I think we sort of started to work out some really interesting stuff as we started to build this project called the Great Reef Census. There we go. Great Reef Census came out of that emergency conference that was held in Townsville in 2017. Roger Beeden was talking about it this morning. And one of the things that came up in that was a conversation actually between Roger and Pete Mumby and myself, was the need for broad-scale reconnaissance images from across the entirety of the Great Barrier Reef. And right now, you would never have seen that as a more important thing as well. And particularly after the winter, when we want to go out there and see what is, whether the refugia are our refugia, whether key source reefs are key source reefs still, that's going to become ever more important. And as you all know, most of you will be struggling to raise money or to get money to do the things you do. There's never enough money to do this. Do we have $1 billion to build a research flotilla to do it? No, we don't. But there are lots of boats out there that could be utilised. So we started to think about a kind of shared economy approach to conservation, which Earth Out also had sort of explored to some extent. I'm doing the mandatory logo slide just because I will fail to mention all of these people. There are actually loads more. None of the marine operators, apart from GBR Biology, are on here, and they're a key part of what we do as well. But you can start to see this is a kind of a big cooperative, collective effort. With Census, Chris Lawson spoke about the science results off the back of it, so I won't get too much into that. They're much more equipped to do that than I am, but this is what we were trying to do. As I said, broad, large-scale reconnaissance across the Great Barrier Reef, a shareable, scalable operating system, so something that could not just do capturing images off the reef, but start to think about what else that could be used for. Ground truthing habitat maps, logistics, so we call it soft logistics, so thinking about if you can utilize 100 vessels across the reef, what else can you use them for? And another one in there is really to get the data in and then to really analyze it as quickly as possible, so not wait for years, but ideally wait for days or weeks. And finally, a piece that is so frequently lost in conservation, which is engage and mobilize on scale, on a really big scale. Now, with Earth Hour, we were engaging and mobilizing on scale, but often only for an hour, but it was in the hundreds of millions of people. So the question that you start to think is, okay, often in conservation, often in research, people are being designed out of the process. So we, from the get-go, have been really thinking about how do you design people into the process, whether it be in the water or virtually. I won't go too much into this, but this is basically how we sort of see it. So if you can go through the sort of scene, you start with the science and the marine scientists at the beginning, but you also have local experts. It could be a skipper, could be a diver. The tour operators, so the people who own the boats, who run the boats, could be a dive boat, could be a tug that goes out to the reef to service mooring ropes, and you go all the way through to hopefully a result at the end. I'm on a short time, so I'll run on. And this is what the surveys are like for sensors. Again, Chris was talking about this yesterday. You put somebody in the water, you're trying to get all 4 sides of an average reef. You put 2 people in the water, each capturing about 40 images each. Ideally, you'd get somewhere between 80 and 100 images per side of the reef. If the reef's bigger, you do more sites. If it's smaller, maybe you only do 2. But you're trying to do the pressure points at either end, the lagoon side and the wild side. And you take a photograph every 5 fin kicks. And it's just a photograph, and you're about 3 meters off the reef. And what you're really trying to do is capture what is the average sort of scene on that reef. We built our own platform to upload, which looks a bit like this. Actually really simple to use. It's improved dramatically every year. We've updated it. But the idea was to try and get the data off those cameras as quickly as we could, so before people went home. So you could load it up onto your phone. If you're on a boat and remote and out of Wi-Fi, we put edge devices on those boats so you could upload straight away. We did find in the first year one of the big barriers was that people would take the photographs, and then when they got home, they'd go to the pub or they would talk to their family and you'd never see the data, the photographs. So a really important piece. And then we set to it. So 2020 was the first year. We did a pilot in 2019 out onto the hardlines. And then 2020, we did the first one. And COVID, which was so terrible for you if you're in Melbourne, for us, there was lots of people on JobKeepers. The boats still need to run their engines. We were able to get quite a big motley flotilla out on the water. And over the years, that's grown and grown and grown. So these numbers are actually slightly out of date. We've now surveyed 615 reefs. It's about just under 18% of the Great Barrier Reef. There's around 100 vessels involved. There's over 120,000 images collected. The data's been going into the COTS team every year to help with their assessment. And we're now in the process of planning, I hope, if we can get the finances in place, a really big census for Great Reef Census 5, which will kick off in September. But that's the purple dots are like basically where we've managed to get boats out to. So it's a very, very good spread across the whole of the reef. There's still a bit of a gap in parts of the hard lines, but the Swains and all the way up into the north is pretty impressive, and all done by the community. So after 2021, we had a bit of an issue, which was we were collecting so many photographs, the experts actually couldn't handle, and we didn't have enough money to pay them to do the analysis of the images. So we started working with one of our partners, Dell, on trying to create an AI solution to this. But knowing, as I said before, that we were trying to design people into the mix, we didn't want to just hand it over to AI. It turned out the AI was not good enough, actually, to be able to give the analysis of what we wanted from the images. So what you can see here on the left-hand side is what we were looking for, the hard coral types. So we were particularly interested in how much plate coral, how much boulder, and how much branching coral there is on each of the survey sites, so we could get a good idea of what the state of that entire reef was. What you can see here is expert analysis, painstakingly done, using your cursor to draw around the different types of coral. Really, really dull. Sophie over there did many thousands of them and was paid a pittance. Yeah, but anyway, so we're trying to look at that. The middle one, that was 5 months into our AI modeling. And Dell lent us an AI team in Singapore, actually, for 8 months to work on this. And in the end, we got there. This is the platform. It's actually live at the moment. So if you want to go and analyze some of the images from the last Great Reef Census, that's live right now. That turned on about 2 weeks ago, I think. But what it does is it asks you basically 3 questions. The AI is starting to outline the shapes on the reef. So in this case, hopefully, if there's anybody that knows coral in here. Okay, that's plate. Thank you. So that's plate coral, but basically every time, once an image has been analyzed about 5 times using a combination of AI and the human eye, we're getting into the high 90s in terms of the accuracy against expert analysis. So that's pretty amazing. So for us, when we think about citizen science, which has historically got a bit of a, not a great reputation for accuracy or being trusted by our researchers, what you actually see is this is, with AI, you're starting to bring citizen science to the frontier of conservation. And that's really interesting, because if you're trying to engage millions of people, they need to have something to do other than just be asked for money or to sign a petition. So we tested it, and Nick's in the room here. We got a $20,000 grant from Queensland government for our education program. Nicole managed to turn that into an amazing pilot project that tested the AI with hundreds of students in the Cairns area around Queensland. We always like to test things on kids first. I think it's a good policy. Anyway, amazing. Some really good characters came out of that, and we found that they were analysing thousands of images really quickly. They are better than us at this. You'd be surprised to hear. But we also wanted to test it a bit, and particularly with people that had nothing to do with the reef or any reefs. So this is a call centre by one of our funders, Cotton On. There's a call centre down in Geelong, and most of these people have never been near the Great Barrier Reef. But we tested it with them, and we really wanted it to be something that you could sit on your sofa in New York or on a bus in Indonesia and be able to do analysis really quickly. So the average time for someone to analyse an image accurately now, if you've done over 5 already, is about 47 seconds. So it's pretty quick. Okay. So we had no money, but you need thousands of people to analyse images. So we built, with our partners, or many of our partners, we built leaderboards and engaged a lot of their staff in virtual volunteering. So many companies allow their staff to do volunteering. They give them a day a year or whatever. And so we built these leaderboards, and you can see some of them here. This is one from a more modern one. This is the Disney one. This is now Disney's largest volunteer program in the world. So that's how we've got thousands of people to help us do the analysis. And this campaign is beginning to run at the moment. Disney's on it at the moment. But Dell and Mars and Salesforce, all sorts of companies are starting to help us. So the leaderboards are now helping us. Basically what happens inside the companies is people get very competitive. And then they get incentivized. So you can win a bucket hat, for example, or even sometimes a trip to the reef. So it's a really amazing way of just getting a lot more people engaged and involved in conservation. And here's some of the results which Chris was talking about yesterday. I'm going to fly through that because I'm running out of time. But the plan with everything that we've built and everything we're trying to do has been designed to be scaled globally. So open sourcing the data, thinking about how we can build stuff that can be used at a very, very cheap rate around the world. And thinking about the model itself. So we call it the dream loop, where we're trying to find communities that can mobilize themselves. Could be communities with a lot of tourism vessels in them, or just communities already working on other restoration projects. And that starts to also tell us they might be communities that could be used as we start to build out more restoration and stewardship projects around the world. So in a way, it's like a kind of social network for conservation in communities everywhere. I'll quickly run through this. I know that, Abby's giving me the look. 2 minutes. Okay, cool. I just wanted to say this. So since this is all about scale and mobilizing as many people as we can and bringing a really new, very large audience and hopefully money also into reef conservation and marine conservation, the Reef Cooperative is the other end of it. It's about very practical but scalable intervention in the water, and very much driven as and co-led with our partners. So this is Citizens, it's GBR Biology, Dawuru, Mars Sustainable Solutions, Gunganji, Cotton On's funding it. It was a very cool end of last year where the Gunganji joined the Reef Cooperative, and that was one of the events. So we took them out onto the amazing pontoon out on Moore Reef, the Reef Magic pontoon, and with all the whole lot of the community came out. So it's just kind of one of those kind of